The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Clarence House as Detective Sergeant Marcus Thompson adjusted his earpiece and checked his watch. 23 years of service with the Metropolitan Police, the last 8 dedicated to royal protection, had taught him to notice everything. Today felt different, though he couldn't pinpoint why. Princess Charlotte, now 12 years old, walked beside him down the marble corridor, her school bag slung over her shoulder. She was discussing her upcoming geography presentation about renewable energy, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. Marcus had been assigned to her personal protection detail for 3 years, and in that time he had watched her grow from a shy 9-year-old into a confident young lady who reminded him so much of her grandmother, the late Queen. "Do you think wind turbines are better than solar panels, Marcus?" Charlotte asked, looking up at him with genuine curiosity. "I think both have their place, Your Royal Highness," he replied, his trained eyes scanning the corridor ahead. "Perhaps you could explore how they work together in your presentation." Charlotte nodded thoughtfully. "That's brilliant. I could show how Denmark uses both." As they approached the main drawing room where Charlotte was to meet with her private tutor, Marcus noticed unusual activity. The Queen Consort's staff were moving about with more urgency than usual, and he could hear raised voices coming from behind the heavy oak doors. His hand instinctively moved closer to his radio. "Wait here for just a moment, Your Royal Highness," Marcus said quietly, positioning himself slightly in front of Charlotte. Through the partially open door, he could see Camilla pacing back and forth, her face flushed with anger. She was speaking rapidly to her private secretary, Lady Susan Whitmore, who looked visibly uncomfortable. "I will not have that child undermining everything we've worked for," Camilla's voice carried through the door. "The way she carries herself, the way people look at her, it's as if she thinks she's already the future queen." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Charlotte was just a child, third in line to the throne behind her father and brother. She had never shown anything but proper respect to all members of the royal family. Lady Whitmore's response was too quiet to hear, but Camilla's reply was crystal clear. Diana's daughter or not, she needs to learn her place. The sooner the better. Charlotte tugged at Marcus's sleeve. "Is everything all right? Should I come back later?" Before Marcus could respond, the door swung open and Lady Whitmore emerged, looking flustered. She nearly collided with them in her haste to leave. "Oh, Your Royal Highness," she stammered, offering a quick curtsy. "Perhaps it would be better to reschedule today's session." "Nonsense," came Camilla's voice from within the room. "Charlotte, come in. We need to have a conversation." Marcus felt every instinct in his body telling him something was wrong. Camilla's tone was cold and commanding, in a way he had never heard directed at any of the children. Charlotte looked up at him questioningly. "I'll wait right outside," Marcus said, giving Charlotte what he hoped was a reassuring smile. As Charlotte entered the drawing room, Marcus positioned himself where he could see through the partially open door while maintaining his post. What he witnessed over the next few minutes would change everything. Camilla began speaking to Charlotte in a voice that grew progressively sharper and more critical. She questioned Charlotte's recent public appearances, suggesting the young princess was showing off and seeking too much attention. Charlotte stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her, listening respectfully despite the increasingly harsh words. "Your grandmother may have been beloved," Camilla continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "But that doesn't give you the right to act as though you're special. You're a spare, Charlotte. Nothing more." Marcus felt his blood pressure rising. He had sworn an oath to protect this child, not just from physical harm, but from anyone who would damage her spirit. What he was witnessing was a grown woman systematically attempting to tear down a 12-year-old girl. Charlotte's voice, when she finally spoke, was steady, but Marcus could detect the tremor underneath. "I apologize if I've done something wrong, Your Majesty. It was never my intention to cause any problems. Your intention? Camilla laughed harshly. Your mere existence is a problem, child. Every time people see you, they remember her. And that makes my life considerably more difficult. Marcus watched as Charlotte's shoulders began to shake slightly. The young princess was fighting back tears, maintaining her composure with a strength that reminded him exactly why the British people had fallen in love with her mother all those years ago. But Camilla wasn't finished. She stepped closer to Charlotte, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper that Marcus had to strain to hear. Let me make something very clear to you, little girl. This family has moved on from your mother's drama and theatrics. You would do well to remember that your place in this family is entirely dependent on our goodwill. Continue to overshadow me in public, and you might find that your royal duties become much less visible. That's when Charlotte finally broke. The tears she had been holding back began to fall, and her young voice cracked as she whispered, I just want to serve the people, like Granny taught me. I don't understand what I've done wrong. Marcus had heard enough. His protective instincts overrode protocol as he stepped into the doorway, his presence immediately commanding attention. Excuse me, Your Majesty, he said, his voice professionally neutral despite the anger burning in his chest. I believe Her Royal Highness has another appointment. Camilla whirled around, her eyes flashing with annoyance at the interruption. This is a private family matter, Sergeant Thompson. Of course, Your Majesty, Marcus replied, never breaking eye contact. However, I am responsible for Princess Charlotte's schedule and safety, and I believe it's time for her to leave. The tension in the room was palpable. Charlotte looked between Marcus and Camilla, confusion and hurt written across her young face. She had been taught to respect her elders and follow royal protocol, but she was also clearly distressed by what had just occurred. Marcus made a decision that would alter the course of his career and potentially his life. He stepped fully into the room and addressed Charlotte directly. Your Royal Highness, your tutor is waiting for you in the library. Shall we go? Charlotte nodded quickly, relief evident in her posture. As she moved toward the door, Camilla's mask of royal composure slipped entirely. How dare you interrupt a private conversation? She hissed at Marcus. You are nothing but hired help. I could have you removed from this position with a single phone call. Marcus stood his ground, his years of military training and police work evident in his bearing. With respect, Your Majesty, my duty is to protect Princess Charlotte. That includes protecting her from anything that might cause her harm. The implication was clear, and Camilla's face darkened with rage. Are you suggesting that I would harm a member of this family? I'm suggesting that a 12-year-old child should not be subjected to verbal attacks from anyone, regardless of their position, Marcus replied calmly. As they stood facing each other, Charlotte quietly moved toward the door. Marcus noticed her distress and knew he needed to extract her from the situation immediately, regardless of the consequences to himself. Your Royal Highness, he said to Charlotte without taking his eyes off Camilla. Please proceed to the library. I'll join you in just a moment. Charlotte hesitated, looking back at both adults. Thank you, Marcus, she said softly, and something in her tone told him she understood exactly what he had just done for her. After Charlotte left, Camilla stepped closer to Marcus, her voice low and threatening. You have made a very serious mistake today, Sergeant Thompson. I will not forget this interference. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Neither will I, Your Majesty. As he left the drawing room to rejoin Charlotte, Marcus knew that his career in royal protection was likely over. But watching Charlotte's relieved smile when he found her in the library, he also knew he had made the only choice his conscience would allow. Some things were more important than job security, and protecting an innocent child from cruelty was definitely one of them. The die was cast, and whatever came next, Marcus Thompson would face it knowing he had done the right thing. The library had become a sanctuary, its tall shelves lined with leather-bound books, providing a sense of calm after the storm in the drawing room. Charlotte sat at the mahogany study table, but her geography textbook remained unopened. Instead, she stared out the window at the gardens, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Marcus positioned himself near the door, maintaining his professional stance while keeping a watchful eye on the young princess. He could see she was still processing what had happened, and his heart ached for her. In 3 years of protection duty, he had never seen her look so small and vulnerable. "Marcus," Charlotte said quietly, not turning from the window, "did I really do something wrong?" The question hit him like a punch to the chest. Here was a child who had been verbally attacked by someone in a position of power, and she was blaming herself. It reminded him painfully of his own daughter, Emma, who was just a year younger than Charlotte. "No, Your Royal Highness," he replied firmly. "You did absolutely nothing wrong." Charlotte finally turned to look at him, her eyes still red from crying. "Then why was she so angry with me? I've always tried to be respectful. I've never complained about my duties or tried to avoid them." Marcus struggled with how much truth to share with a 12-year-old. His training had taught him to remain neutral in family disputes, but his conscience wouldn't let him allow Charlotte to internalize blame that wasn't hers. "Sometimes adults have complicated feelings that have nothing to do with children," he said carefully. "What happened in there was about her feelings, not your actions." Before Charlotte could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and her face brightened slightly. "It's from Papa," she said. "He wants to have lunch with George and me tomorrow. He says he has something important to discuss with us." Marcus felt a chill of apprehension. Given what had just occurred, he wondered if Camilla had already made good on her threat to call in favors. The timing seemed suspicious. "That sounds lovely," he replied, though he was already formulating plans to ensure Prince William was fully informed about the morning's events before that lunch took place. The remainder of the day passed without incident, but Marcus could feel the tension building like electricity before a storm. Palace staff moved with unusual urgency, and he noticed several hushed conversations that stopped when he approached. By evening, he knew something significant was brewing. His suspicions were confirmed when he received a call from his supervisor, Chief Inspector David Hartwell, requesting an immediate meeting. As Marcus drove through London's evening traffic toward Scotland Yard, he rehearsed the conversation he knew was coming. Hartwell's office was dimly lit when Marcus arrived, the older man's face grave as he gestured for Marcus to sit. "I've received a complaint about your conduct today," Hartwell began without preamble. "A very serious complaint from a very high-ranking source." Marcus had expected this, but hearing it still felt like a blow. "Sir, if this is about my intervention in the drawing room incident, I acted according to my primary directive to protect Princess Charlotte from any potential harm." Hartwell leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus intently. "Tell me exactly what happened from the beginning." For the next 30 minutes, Marcus recounted every detail of the morning's events, from Charlotte's cheerful conversation about renewable energy to Camilla's verbal attack and subsequent threat. Hartwell listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "The complaint alleges that you were insubordinate and overstepped your authority," Hartwell said when Marcus finished. "It also suggests that you misinterpreted a normal family discussion as something more serious." "Sir, with respect, what I witnessed was not a normal family discussion," Marcus replied firmly. "It was an adult systematically attempting to intimidate and belittle a child. If Princess Charlotte had been any other 12-year-old girl, we would have intervened without question." Hartwell was quiet for a long moment, then opened a file on his desk. "Your record is exemplary, Marcus. 23 years without a single significant complaint. The royal family has consistently praised your professionalism and dedication. Until now," Marcus said quietly. "Until now," Hartwell agreed. "The problem is, This complaint doesn't just allege professional misconduct. It questions your psychological fitness for the position, suggests you may have formed an inappropriate emotional attachment to your assignment. Marcus felt his anger flare. They're suggesting I'm unstable? They're suggesting you're no longer objective, Hartwell corrected, and given the sensitive nature of royal protection, any question of objectivity is taken very seriously. So what happens now? Hartwell closed the file and met Marcus's eyes. Officially, you're being reassigned pending a full investigation. Unofficially, I've been doing this job for 27 years and I've learned to read between the lines. This isn't about your psychological fitness or professional conduct. This is about you crossing someone very powerful. Are you asking me to apologize for protecting a child? I'm asking you to be very careful, Hartwell said seriously, because the forces you're dealing with here have the power to end careers, and they're not above using it. As Marcus left Scotland Yard that evening, he felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. His career was in jeopardy, possibly his pension and his family's security. But every time he considered backing down, he remembered Charlotte's trembling shoulders and tear-filled eyes. The next morning brought unexpected developments. Marcus received a call from Prince William's private secretary requesting an urgent meeting. When he arrived at Kensington Palace, he found the Prince of Wales waiting in his study, his expression serious but not hostile. "Sergeant Thompson," William said, gesturing for him to sit. "I understand there was an incident yesterday involving my daughter." Marcus chose his words carefully. "Yes, Your Royal Highness. I filed a report with my supervisor detailing the events." William nodded slowly. "Charlotte told me her version of what happened. She also told me how you helped her when she was upset." He paused, studying Marcus intently. "I want to hear your account." For the second time in 24 hours, Marcus recounted the events in the drawing room. William listened without interruption, though Marcus could see anger building in the prince's eyes as the story progressed. "My daughter is 12 years old," William said when Marcus finished, his voice tight with controlled fury. "She's a child who has lost her great-grandmother, who is trying to understand her place in this family and this institution while dealing with all the normal challenges of adolescence." "Yes, sir," Marcus agreed. "The idea that any adult would deliberately try to undermine her confidence or make her feel unwelcome in her own family is unacceptable to me," William continued, "regardless of who that adult might be." Marcus sensed an opening. "Your Royal Highness, I understand that my actions may have created difficulties, but I would make the same choice again. Princess Charlotte's well-being had to take precedence." William stood and walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. "You know, Marcus, my mother went through something similar when she was young. Different circumstances, but the same underlying dynamics. Someone in power using that power to diminish and control." The comparison was not lost on Marcus. Diana's struggles within the royal family were well documented, and the parallels to what Charlotte had experienced were striking. "I won't allow history to repeat itself with my daughter," William said firmly, turning back to face Marcus. "Not while I have breath in my body." "What does that mean for the investigation, sir?" William's expression hardened. "It means that some people are about to learn that being queen consort doesn't make you untouchable when it comes to the welfare of my children." As Marcus left Kensington Palace, he felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. He had the future king's support. But that also meant he was now caught in the middle of what promised to be a significant royal family conflict. The stakes were getting higher, and he knew that Camilla wouldn't accept this challenge to her authority quietly. That evening, as he sat at home with his own family, Marcus tried to explain the situation to his wife, Sarah, without revealing too many confidential details. "You did the right thing," she said simply, taking his hand. "Whatever comes next, You protected a child who needed protecting. That's what good people do. But as Marcus lay awake that night, he wondered if being a good person would be enough to survive what was coming. The battle lines were being drawn, and he was about to find out just how far powerful people would go to protect their positions. The corridors of Buckingham Palace felt different as Marcus walked through them 3 days later. Word of the conflict had spread through the palace staff with the speed that only gossip in a closed environment can achieve. Some staff members averted their eyes when they saw him, while others offered subtle nods of support. Everyone seemed to be choosing sides. Marcus had been summoned to meet with the king's private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, a meeting that could determine his future. As he waited in the antechamber outside the secretary's office, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just 72 hours. The previous day had brought another confrontation, this one even more significant than the first. Charlotte had been scheduled to attend a charity event for children's literacy, her first public engagement since the drawing room incident. Marcus had been temporarily reinstated to his duties pending the investigation, primarily because no other protection officer was immediately available with the necessary security clearance. The event had gone smoothly until the very end, when Camilla had made an unexpected appearance. Her presence hadn't been on any schedule Marcus had seen, and he immediately sensed trouble. Charlotte had been speaking with a group of young readers when Camilla approached, her smile appearing warm for the cameras but her eyes cold. "Charlotte, dear," Camilla had said loudly enough for the nearby reporters to hear, "I think it's time we headed home. You've had quite enough attention for one day." The words seemed innocent enough to observers, but Marcus heard the underlying message. Charlotte's face had flushed, and she'd quickly said goodbye to the children she'd been speaking with. As they prepared to leave, Camilla had leaned close to Charlotte and whispered something that made the young princess visibly recoil. That's when Marcus made his second crucial decision. Instead of maintaining his position at a respectful distance, he had stepped closer, close enough to hear Camilla's whispered words. "Next time, try to remember that this isn't about you," Camilla had hissed. "The sooner you learn to fade into the background, the easier things will be for everyone." Marcus had seen Charlotte's shoulders begin to shake again, and something inside him had snapped. His military background, his years as a police officer, his role as a father, everything combined to override his training about royal protocol. "Your Royal Highness," he had said to Charlotte, his voice carrying clearly, "your father asked me to ensure you were back by 4 o'clock. We should leave now." It wasn't true, but it gave Charlotte an excuse to step away from Camilla immediately. More importantly, it served notice to Camilla that her behavior was being monitored and would be reported. Camilla's reaction had been swift and furious. "Sergeant Thompson," she had said, her voice dangerously quiet, "you seem to be confused about your role here." "Not at all, Your Majesty," Marcus had replied calmly. "My role is to protect Princess Charlotte. That's exactly what I'm doing." The exchange had lasted only seconds, but several reporters had noticed the tension. By evening, speculation about discord within the royal family was spreading across social media and tabloid websites. Now, sitting in Sir Clive's antechamber, Marcus knew the consequences were about to catch up with him. The door opened and he was beckoned inside. Sir Clive Alderton was a man who had dedicated his life to the smooth functioning of the monarchy. His expression was neutral as he gestured for Marcus to sit, but his tone was grave. "Sergeant Thompson, in 30 years of royal service, I have rarely encountered a situation quite like this one," he began. "Your actions have created significant complications." Marcus remained silent, letting the secretary continue. "However," Sir Clive continued, "they have also forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the dynamics within this family. His Majesty has asked me to convey several important points to you." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. King Charles's involvement elevated this from a staff disciplinary matter to something much more significant. First, the king wants you to know that your dedication to Princess Charlotte's welfare has been noted and is appreciated. Your service record speaks for itself, and your motivations are not in question. This was better than Marcus had dared hope, but he sensed there was more coming. Second, His Majesty recognizes that this situation has put you in an impossible position. You were asked to protect his granddaughter, and when you perceived a threat to her well-being, you acted according to your training and conscience. Sir Clive paused and studied Marcus carefully. Third, and this is perhaps the most important point, the king will not tolerate any member of this family, regardless of their position, causing distress to his grandchildren. That includes verbal intimidation, emotional manipulation, or any other form of inappropriate behavior. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. The king was taking Charlotte's side in this conflict. However, Sir Clive continued, and Marcus braced himself for the inevitable qualification, the situation has become untenable. The Queen Consort has made it clear that she cannot work effectively while you remain in your current position. She views your presence as a personal affront and a challenge to her authority. I understand, sir, Marcus said quietly. Am I being dismissed? Sir Clive smiled slightly for the first time during their conversation. On the contrary, you're being promoted. Marcus blinked in surprise. Sir, His Majesty has decided to create a new position within the Royal Protection Unit. You will be designated as Principal Protection Officer for the Wales children, reporting directly to Prince William and ultimately to His Majesty himself. Your authority in matters concerning Princess Charlotte and Prince George's safety and well-being will be absolute. The implications were staggering. Marcus was being given unprecedented authority and protection, effectively putting him beyond Camilla's reach. There is one condition, Sir Clive added. You will be expected to maintain the highest standards of professionalism and discretion. Any future interventions must be documented and reported through proper channels. The king is supporting you in this instance, but he expects you to use this support wisely. Marcus nodded solemnly. Of course, sir. May I ask how Princess Charlotte is handling all of this? Sir Clive's expression softened slightly. She's resilient, like her grandmother was. Prince William has had several long conversations with her about the importance of not internalizing other people's issues. She's also written you a thank-you note. He handed Marcus an envelope with his name written in Charlotte's careful handwriting. Inside, he found a simple message. Dear Marcus, thank you for being kind to me when someone else wasn't. I hope you don't get in too much trouble. Love, Charlotte. Marcus felt his eyes mist over as he read the note. It confirmed everything he'd believed about why his actions were necessary. What happens now with the Queen Consort? Marcus asked. Sir Clive's expression became carefully neutral. Let's just say that Her Majesty has been reminded of the expectations regarding her interactions with all members of the royal family, particularly the children. The king has made his position on this matter very clear. As Marcus left the palace that afternoon, he reflected on the extraordinary turn of events. In less than a week, he had gone from a routine protection assignment to the center of a royal family crisis and emerged not only intact, but strengthened. More importantly, he had helped to establish a boundary that would protect Charlotte and potentially other royal children from similar treatment in the future. The message had been sent clearly through the ranks. The well-being of the royal children was paramount, and anyone who threatened that well-being would face consequences, regardless of their position in the family hierarchy. That evening, Marcus called Prince William to discuss the new arrangements and found the future king in excellent spirits. Marcus, William said warmly, I can't thank you enough for what you did. Charlotte has been like her old self again since she learned you weren't being dismissed. She was devastated at the thought that you might be punished for helping her. It was the right thing to do, sir, Marcus replied. Yes, it was, William agreed. And it's also set an important precedent. My children will never have to endure what my mother went through, not while I have anything to say about it. As Marcus tucked his own daughter into bed that night, Emma asked him about his work. Did you have a good day today, Daddy? Marcus thought about Charlotte's thank you note, about the king's support, about the new position that would allow him to protect the royal children even more effectively. Yes, sweetheart, he said, kissing her forehead. I had a very good day. Sometimes standing up for what's right is scary, but it's always worth it. Outside, London continued its ancient rhythm, unaware that within the palace walls, a quiet revolution had taken place. A royal guard had turned against the queen consort, not out of disloyalty to the crown, but out of loyalty to something higher. The protection of an innocent child and the principles of decency that should guide everyone regardless of rank or title. In the months that followed, Marcus's new role would prove its worth repeatedly, as he worked closely with Prince William to ensure that Charlotte and George could grow up with confidence and security. Knowing that their welfare was protected by more than just protocol, they were protected by people who understood that true loyalty sometimes means standing up to power, not bowing down to it. The incident had changed everything, but in the end, it had changed everything for the better. Charlotte continued to blossom in her royal duties, carrying forward her grandmother Diana's legacy of compassion and service, secure in the knowledge that she was valued and protected. And Marcus Thompson, the royal guard who had risked everything to defend her, became a symbol within the palace of what it meant to serve with both courage and conscience.